Hi, my name is Nikki, and welcome to The Interventionalist. I restarted with this like 3 times, which is why this is already going, and I don't think I have found the right words to get the point across at all, but I don't want to be the person I used to be. I don't want to repeat the past, and I am petrified of it. And I guess I wonder if anyone else feels the same. You know, like when there's a version of you out there, you know, and do they ever really die that you don't like, that you don't want, that you don't relate to anymore? And it's like they always have they always have a grip on you some way or another because they've been a part of what made you today. So you can't get rid of them. You can't cut off what has made you you. It will always be a part of you, and I don't want it to be. And the decisions that they made, I don't want them to ever be able to make me remake those decisions. The decisions that hurt or hurt my life. And the past month in particular, you know, as I start to like my life and myself, and I'm more aware than ever of the people I have been before that I don't want anymore, or of the aspects of them that I wanted to die. And you can't really kill yourself, you know, when you're alive. You can't kill aspects of you that maybe you would want dead. Maybe it would even help to hold a funeral for the people you used to be, right? Like, lay them to rest. And maybe that's something that could help me, but I just don't want to become who I used to be. But who are you other than what you've been? I guess it's who you are today, but you've been so much more than what you are today. And I don't always like that. What it has been, or what I've been, and, you know, I guess something else that's really weird to live with is the way that there are people in this world who will only ever know that version of you, you know, so it won't die. Like, it can't die because it still lives on in other people's lives. And sometimes I think if I met them again today, it's like, believe me, please believe me, I'm not this person anymore. I'm not this person who, I don't know, different parts of myself. Like, trust me, I'm not this person anymore, but you can't convince someone that you're something you're not. Or you can't convince someone that you are no longer this thing when that's all they know, and they're never probably going to know any different because they're not in your life anymore. And so that will always exist, and that's hard to live with sometimes. Like, you can't change what people think about you, but you also can't change what you've been. That justifies why they think that way. And I don't like the idea that, like, past versions of me can become immortalized because of the impacts they've had on other people or other things. But they are. And that's scary. It makes it feel like you can never really change, even though no one's saying that to you, right? Like, no one is telling you can't change. But maybe people are, right? Because sometimes there's people in your life, sometimes maybe it can be family or a friend who is telling you what you are, and they'll never see anything different. They don't want to see anything different, so they will always tell you that that's who you are. And what are you if not what other people say you are? That's not true. That's not fair. You are so much more than people's perceptions of you, and I know that I'm so much more than people's perceptions of me, but it's hard, I guess, to sometimes feel confident in that when there's people who are looking you in the eye and telling you no, like, that's not who you are. You know, I've been thinking a lot about stereotypes, and I want to film a video. The next thing I'm going to film is going to be about, like, why we can't kill homosexuality, and it has a lot to do with stereotypes. And this reminds me of, like, the way that we all develop our own personal stereotype, right? Like, I think when we think about the word stereotype, we think about general stereotypes about certain communities, or we think about general stereotypes. But stereotypes are so much more than that. It's just an idea that somebody has about another person, and we all have our own stereotype. And it's just cemented by past ideas of us, past versions of us that aren't forgotten. So what is my stereotype? What is never feeling like you can escape your stereotype, and knowing that you also won't always be able to, because it extends so much further. It's so much deeper than the stereotypes that are general. Like, I feel like the word deeper might give the wrong idea. Like, that it's not that stereotypes are not, they're deeply embedded into society, but for a stereotype to be individual and to be deeply embedded in the self and another self is a different kind of depth. And both hurt, right? But they hurt in different ways. And I don't know which one can feel more damaging. I mean, at the end of the day, we exist in communities, right? And it's always damaging no matter what to be a part of a community that you feel like hasn't been able to escape its stereotype. And that's incredibly damaging in different ways, and especially when it's systemic, because it's damaging in a very serious, long-term way and affects your entire existence. But for a stereotype to just affect your person towards the people that have at one point or still do mean more to you than anything, it affects you in a different way when your stereotype is believed by the people closest to you and about yourself. Or I guess maybe it hurts worse when your stereotype is being created and projected onto you by the people who should know you better than anyone and who should know that this isn't you. And sometimes it might come from stigma, right? Like, I think, like, if you are, in addition to yourself, outside of a stereotype already, and this person is supposed to know you as more than that, and they do, but they've also created another stereotype around that, like about your actual personality and character traits as you've gone through life. Maybe at some points you've been someone who's a little bit more, like, will fly up the handle easier, or like a little bit more on the depressive side, or like sometimes you're a little manic, or who's overly kind, or who's just kind, and or somebody maybe that can get snippy. Like, those more personal parts that come out in personal relationships, right? Like, I don't know, they become, what am I trying to say? Let me think for a second. I think I just lost my train of thought. I'm not sure what I was trying to say, but I guess back to the idea of stigma, about like what created these stereotypes. Maybe it was just something you were going through in your life, but maybe, what I was trying to say is that, and this can be about a general stereotype, but also your personal stereotype, that when you don't inhabit what somebody believes that stereotype to be, they don't see you. Like, suddenly you don't exist unless you start portraying those traits. They don't see you. And how hard it's so confusing and painful to be invisible to somebody while you are right in front of them, and at the same time they can see you so clearly to themselves. They think they see you with clarity beyond the clarity you have towards yourself. Like, this is about a general stereotype, but in the book East of Eden by John Steinbeck, there's a character, and I can't remember his name, but he's Chinese, and he's living in a time that's particularly incredibly racist, and he's living in Salinas Valley, and he's originally from, my nose itches, he's originally from China, but when he meets one of the main characters, he's using this really thick accent. He's talking in pidgin, and like he's portraying to a T the stereotype about a Chinese man who is a foreigner who doesn't fit in this culture, right? He's personifying that, and eventually he's talking to this one character who's very open-minded at the time, and he stops. He loses the accent, and he starts talking in his actual voice, and it's very American. He doesn't have a Chinese accent like that, and essentially when the two are talking about it, he says, if people don't see you unless you are what they think you are to be, unless you are their stereotype. And it just made me realize so much about, first it had me thinking about like the general stereotypes, and then it had me thinking about the personal ones. And I think what had me thinking about the personal ones is because I am perpetually afraid of repeating my past. And when I meet other people or I see people who used to be a part of my past, I feel like I'm reliving it a bit. But more than anything, I feel like I'm reliving myself and the parts of myself that I don't want. And if I come across someone that used to know that version of me, like, it'll come back to life. And that's not to say that they're bad people. They're not. It's just that they know a part of me that I don't want to exist anymore. And it's like I just can't see it. I don't want to see it, because if I see it, it'll be real again, and it'll somehow become me again, and I don't want that. And all of the change and the growth I've made will just suddenly dissipate in front of me. And I remember I moved around this time last year, and back in like last December, it was a few months after I moved, I was supposed to meet up with somebody who I had known before, and in this time, like, the reason I had moved, and in this time, there was a really life-changing event that happened, and it was the reason I moved. And in the time span since I had left, I had changed a lot, but I was also aware that there was still so much of me who was still that person that I was trying to overcome. And I remember telling my friends and my therapist that I was afraid that if I went and saw him again, that suddenly that person would come back to life and I'd have to look them in the eyes, and I was afraid that he would only see that person, and he wasn't that person. I also knew deep down that he was somebody who would see me grow and respect and recognize it and see that person. But on the odds that he didn't, I struggled to even want to meet with him, because what if he didn't? Just what if he didn't, and then I was that person forever? Sorry, I had to get up for a second because my cat was freaking out. She wants food. But essentially, you can hold funerals for the person that you've been, but you can't force other people to attend that funeral. So it's just kind of terrifying to think that you might always be one thing in your life, and in a lot of different ways. If you're a part of a community in particular, that'll be stereotyped. And this is a whole other conversation, which I think I already mentioned, that the next thing I want to talk about is, like, why we can't, like, kill homosexuality, because there's a lot of different reasons, but part of it is stereotypes. But especially if, like, you wear your stereotype. So, like, that's a whole other conversation. But then there's not only an internal stereotype that the people closest to you have created, but there's also one that the world sees, and you can't hide it. And if that's a reality for you, that's just fucked beyond words. And I hope then that, like, you're currently lucky enough to have personal relationships that at least recognize the you for who you are and haven't stereotyped you that way. And I truly do believe that we will find people in our lives, all of us, and that you will find people that will not let a personal stereotype live. But all of this came from the fact that I guess sometimes I'm scared of the person I used to be, and that she's haunting me. And I don't want her to haunt me, and I don't know if it always will. You know, I think maybe this comes from the way that some of us hold on to different parts of ourselves more than others. And for me, I think some people hold on to better versions of themselves more than others, more than the ones that maybe weren't so great, and others hold on to the ones that were a little not so great. And for me personally, like, I know myself, and it's just easier. I don't know why. And this is weird, right? But I hold on to the parts of myself that used to hurt, and the parts of myself that did hurt, and I use those as an instigator of my current want to change, and because I'm afraid of going back to that. And other people might hold on, I'm not this person, I don't know, but maybe hold on to better versions of themselves in the past, and as they're going through something right now, they're using it as an instigator to change and get back to something like that. And I guess it's two different ways of living, but I guess it also depends on if you've liked what is considered the better versions of yourself in the past, and if those are something you even want to get back to. But you'll always be different. Like, you'll never be the same person. So I think that's why it hurts particularly bad when people don't let you become these new versions or won't accept them, because it is impossible for us to stay one version. That is not the way life works. You can, no matter how hard you try, you cannot stay the same person for the rest of your entire life. You will change. If there's one thing guaranteed in this world, it is that you will change. And everything is temporary. The good and the bad, and the good and bad versions of you are... Good and bad versions are the liked versions of you will not be immortal. They are mortal. They will die, and they will be reborn in different ways, but it's different people, and they will never come back exactly the same. Maybe they can appear to be reincarnated in, like, a past version of you, but they'll never be exactly the same. They'll still come back in a different form, even. Like, they'll never be the same. You can never, and that's comforting now I'm saying this. That's pretty comforting. It's pretty damn comforting to think that because of the change I've experienced since then, I can never be that exact person again. I will never go back to who I was. That you can never go back to who you have been, because there's too much that's happened in between, and that's changed. Wow, that's actually really comforting now that I think about it. Is, maybe there's past versions of me that sometimes I preferred, but I have to accept that just as much as there's ones I don't prefer, I can't get back to that either. And how comforting, because that means I can't go back to the ones I didn't like either. And there's a lot of different reasons you could not have loved that past version of you the same way that you love this one, but I guess it's important to know that, and it's something that I'm realizing more than ever now, is that you have to love all versions of them. And I guess it's best to look back at the ones you didn't even necessarily like with love, at least. Because if not, you'll go through your whole life resentful of yourself for having been those things, or just experiencing a lot of self-judgment that you don't deserve, because you don't really always have control of who you become. That sounds really dark, and that's not necessarily true. I'm not sure if there's a good way to word it, but when you've gone through certain events in your life, they shape you, and because of that, you only have so much control over who you are and what you become, because it's external events that determine your internal world. It's what you've experienced in the outside world that makes up your internal world. So what you've experienced in the outside world, out of your control, will play just as big a part as the ones in your control into who you become, and maybe those aren't always good. And so if that made you into something you don't necessarily like at that point in your life, don't be angry at yourself for becoming something that the world made you, or tried to make you. But I guess always remembering that you're more than that, and you can be more than that, and that is also temporary, and you can change it. And thankfully, we do have an internal world, and because of that internal world, it's possible to find the strength to become a different external, or to find different external outcomes that we like a little bit better, right? And put ourselves into create a better external world that'll give us better experiences. But developing an internal compass for the self and where it goes and who it becomes is dependent on what you've experienced outside of you, and you don't always have control over that. You don't have a lot of control over that most of the time, and especially when you're a kid. And that is sort of what gives us, it's the fundament of who we are, is what we went through as children, and you have very little control over what you go through as a kid. And now that I'm older, I guess that's why I'm so afraid of going back into the past, because at one point I was sort of just an amalgamation of what I experienced as a kid, and I had a hard time becoming a person that was more than those things. I think my cat just meowed, but I have headphones in. Hello. Oh, she did. You're so wonderful. Come here. Sorry. Kind of funny is my cat's name is Ashley. I adopted her with that name, but I kept it, and it's just, whenever I tell people that, they always give me a look, but I think it's a cute name. Back to what I was saying is, at one point I was an amalgamation of just my childhood experiences that I couldn't control, the good and the bad ones, but I didn't necessarily love that person for different reasons. Not necessarily for the way they acted towards other people, but because of how they felt. You know, they were sad. I was sad. I was a sad. I don't want to be sad again like that, and that has been a huge part of like this internal compass I now have to point me in a different direction that I hope won't return to that. But I had to have those experiences to do that, because now I know it's something I never want to go back to. But I didn't have control of what happened to me when I was a kid the way that I sort of do now, because I do have an internal compass. Oh my god, I'm so itchy right now. I don't know, I'm so itchy. But my camera turns off at 30 minutes and it's about to turn off. But it's freaky to think that there's going to be versions of yourself that are immortalized forever, and parts of those aren't versions you want to even live. Those are the versions you want to be mortal and die. And I talk about it all the time, that I'm just afraid of repeating the past, and I'm afraid of becoming the person who ended up in situations that sucked. And when I look back on that, it's not that I didn't like the person who ended up in those situations, it's just that they were the ones making that choice, and they were the ones capable of making that choice, and they ended up there. So I don't want to be them ever again, because they made those choices, and I don't want my current self to ever make those choices. You are so much more than what you have been, even if other people will only know what you have been. And even if that can suck at times, there's a lot of life ahead of you, and a lot of people that you will meet that will let you become this new person and show who this new person is, and let them live and let them breathe, and they'll hold the funerals with you if you change. And it's just about finding, oh, my camera's really going to die soon. It's just about finding those people, and who knows how long it'll take, but you will, because life is temporary, and because of that, you'll never be the same person forever. And that can be so comforting, just as much it can be a little scary when you're in the good moments. But that also can mean what you think are good moments can one day become great and better. And, you know, it really is so cliche, but as I get older, cliches, I realize are cliches for a reason. Oh, don't die. As you get older, you sort of, or that's not what I'm trying to say. It's really cliche, but you need the bad to see the good, but I think you need the bad to become the good. Because if you don't know what was bad and what put you in those bad positions, whether it's the kind of people that you were around or the decisions you made, if you didn't have those experiences, you wouldn't have the internal compass that'll guide you towards making better ones or finding better ones, because you can see patterns differently and whether other people or yourself. And I guess I'm also talking to myself, and my camera's right about to end, and I guess I don't want to keep rambling, but you are just, like, I just want to say, you do not have to be the same person forever, even if other people sometimes make you feel that way. You are not a self-fulfilling prophecy based on the prophecy other people have given you. You are so much more. You are so much more. I promise you that I can make a promise. Absolutely. And yeah, I'm so much more. I just want to tell myself that. Oh, it's going to end. Okay, well, my camera's going to turn off. And I hope you have a good rest of your day, and that you just remember that you can even change how you're acting right now. It's never too late if you don't like the way you're acting today. Okay. Bye. Hi. Sorry, I have one more thing to say. I always forget to do this. But on the website, which is linked below, there's a submissions page, and I would love if anyone watches this, if you have anything to say about this or anything else, any topic, or just a personal experience, anything, I would love to hear it, to read it. There's different ways you can submit, like a video or voice recording or a paper, a piece of art, a picture, and yeah, I just wanted to say that, because that's really what all of this is about, is have a conversation. So if you have anything, I would love to see it. And also, I have pieces on there. I have some academic pieces, and I have personal ones, and like some philosophical ones, and I also didn't make a video about this one, but I have an academic paper, philosophical paper about the notion of selective service and gender equality. So if you're interested in that, maybe you want to read it? Okay, now that's actually all I have to say. Bye.